something I've really talked much about publicly, but I've touched on it a few times in talks that I've given and seen that people perk up a little bit. So we're talking today about preventing breast cancer. And what we're going to talk about is a bit different than a lot of the strategies and a lot of the information that's available. You get online and you Google breast cancer, or if you pick up a book or a brochure or you talk to your doctor about breast cancer, there's a very specific set of information you're going to get every time. And we are not going to come from that perspective. However, this is a very delicate issue because so many of us have been touched in our lives in some way by breast cancer. Can I just see a show of hands, like how many people's lives have been touched in some way by breast cancer? Somebody maybe you know, somebody in your life connected to somebody. So quite a few of us have been in some way impacted by breast cancer, or maybe been personally affected by breast cancer, or seen people we know suffer with breast cancer. So that makes this a loaded discussion. And for me, feeling like as a man getting up on the stage to talk about breast cancer is also a delicate situation. So my attempt today will be to be mindful about that. And my request from you as the audience who's going to be hearing this or receiving it is to be compassionate with me as well, because it's not my style to hold back. I'm going to call it like I see it. And because some of us have been affected by this in some way, it's easy for us to get emotionally invested in or defensive towards new ideas because we're somewhat invested in belief systems. If something starts to raise flags for you, if you get triggered by something I say, then look within yourself and see what the belief system is that's being triggered. And then let's look at where the belief system comes from. Because, you know, breast cancer is big in the news. Breast cancer, the pink ribbon, right? Some of us maybe have a pink ribbon. We've been educated about what this mystery disease is and what the mysterious causes of this disease might be, and we all want to believe in our hearts that they're hard at work out there with our, you know, the dollar that we pay at the checkout aisle for the people with their name that they post on the wall. We all want to believe that they're hard at work looking for a cure. As if there's a cure, like there's some substance that if we can just get that substance, breast cancer will go away. But it's not going away. And the more money we're throwing at it, the more it just keeps growing and growing and spreading. There's a great statistic that's in 1900, in 1900, cancer itself was 1 in 8,000 people. 1 in 8,000 people in 1900. So 109 years ago, 1 out of 8,000 people was affected by cancer. Today, I believe the statistic is 1 out of 3 men and 1 out of 2 women. And growing. And growing. So it looks like the generation coming up now will be 1 in 2. So, you know, if you have 2 children, that means 1 of them, right? If you're a couple, that means 1 of you going to cancer. Now, that statistic is pretty profound, right? 1 in 8,000 to 1 in 2. How do you juggle that? How do you make that happen? And when it's funny, I always like to see the reactions of the educated. And, you know, let me pause here actually and say that I'm not formally educated. So my credentials are simply what you see. I'm a speaker. I travel around North America sharing my message, but I'm not formally educated. So I love to watch educated people say, well, what are his credentials? Where'd you go to school? What's his degree in? Oh, then who needs it? Interestingly, we could bring up every doctor in Sanford, and I'll take the Pepsi challenge with any of them. Like, I guarantee that I'm healthier than any of them, and I think it would be obvious to people with common sense. Obvious. You guys know the story of Chinese medicine, how Chinese medicine works? That if you get sick, you have a Chinese medicine doctor, if you get sick, you don't pay him. Right? You only pay the Chinese medicine doctor when you're well. We have a funny system because we pay the doctor when we're sick, which subtly kind of encourages the doctor to need sick people around him all the time so he can make money, right? That's kind of funny. If we brought these doctors in here, like every doctor in Sanford, people with common sense could go, okay, that guy looks ill. That guy looks well. Right? Common sense. Today's talk's about common sense. But we don't have much of that anymore, such that now people could look at an incredibly healthy, vibrant, energetic person who seems educated and not listen to them and instead take the advice from a sick person. That's kind of where we're at, right? When you talk to those sick people and those people who study disease, and you ask them, hey, how come it's gone from 1 in 8,000 to 1 in 2? Well, how's that possible? They like to say things like this. Well, due to early detection methods that we now have, what happened was back then they weren't aware that cancer was there, they couldn't find it, they couldn't see it, so it was probably about the same, but 1 in 8,000 to 1 in 2, it's impossible. Anybody ever seen cancer for real, all the way late stage? Really seen it? Raise your hand. It's like a person is rotting. Right? It's like you left food out and it started rotting. It's decomposing, tumoring, breaking open, and bleeding and leaking, and it's like the person is rotting alive. They were missing that in 1900? I doubt it. So something's changed, right? Something's changed. Breast cancer is like this. I often ask women, especially young women, have you ever actually seen a cancerous breast? Because most people haven't seen that. Anyone seen a cancerous breast? Numbers start going down, right? We're all of us fearing breast cancer, especially women. Lots of emotional stuff here. People fearing breast cancer, but not even knowing what it really is. When you see it, and I encourage you to go, get on Google Images and just try to bring it up. And it's kind of scary to see, but it's also really educational because when you see it, you know what it is. And then you can start thinking intelligently about treating it. But if we keep it hidden away, we keep it tucked away, where we never see it, it's hard for us to really address it. The whole pink ribbon thing, I think it's time to let that go, right? If you've been giving money to breast cancer, you've been basically giving money to breast cancer. That makes sense? We're not supporting, or we're giving money to research about breast cancer. That's spring water, by the way. Giving money to the research on breast cancer. In other words, to the people who are going to give us more numbers and statistics about why there's nothing you can do or no way to protect yourself. They take that money and they fund a giant industry that studies symptoms of diseases but never comes back with any conclusive data for us that we can apply to our lives. Ever. What do they come up with? Great ways to cause breast cancer, like radioactive screening methods. Cancer-causing screening methods. That's the genius of our dollars at work. I was recently in a checkout aisle. I walk up and the girl behind the counter says to me, and there's people, right? Like, that's me and then the people who are getting ready to check out. So you're kind of on the spot. And she says, would you like to give $1 to help save the children? And you're like, what a sales pitch, right? How do you respond? Like, no. I don't want to help save the children. Like, you're like, oh, you're put in a position, everyone's looking at you like, you're going to help save the children? So I was like, said to the girl, wow, that's an incredible sales pitch. She's like, well, that's just the name of the company, Help Save the Children. I was like, oh yeah, what a coincidence. I'm sure they didn't think about that. It's good marketing. So similarly with the pink ribbon, right? It's like really, it's about wanting to appear like you're doing something. Because we all want to, and we care. We do care. We all are being affected by this disease. But our money going to cancer, no matter how many walks we do, no matter how many 5-mile jogs we do to raise money for cancer, those people who are taking that money in are never going to come back with a cure. Because they don't even seem to understand how disease is caused. And they're looking for some kind of virus or molecule that's initiating it, and then they want to come up with some other molecule that they can counteract that molecule with, and they never look at how health is created. They only study symptoms of disease, and that's it, right? They have basically in their tool belt, their arsenal. If we talk to a guy like Arthur here, you talk to an herbalist like myself, we have a big arsenal of treatment methods. There's a lot that we can access to treat with. Medical doctors, what's in their arsenal, their tool belt? They have poisoning, cutting, and radioactive burning. Those are their healing methods. Outside of that, there's not a lot there. There's not a lot there. Some of them are starting to open up to, well, maybe we could bring in an alternative thing, but still cut, poison, and burn. But maybe we can start to open up to a little bit of alternative stuff. But ultimately, they're not coming back with anything but those 3 methods because they